media rejection. Our modern media has created a huge labyrinth of informations and of subcultures and of identifiers for people. If you just take the modern left and right narrative, this narrative is so mixed up that you become completely lost in it. And since with terms like left and right, you are categorized politically, and you are also judged morally in our modern society. Since there is a moral judgment connected with the terms left and right, you are obliged to understand, at least generally, what left and right means. For example, what does it mean, moral judgment? So for example, if your workplace, if your employer deems you a right-wing person, you can lose your job. If the system deems you a right-wing person, you can lose your position in the public service, in the military, or in politics, wherever. So, but the problem with this is that it is not your decision whether you are left and right. And since what is deemed right today and left today can tomorrow be completely vice versa, you know, for example, the attributes, the symbols that you use. I had this conversation with this left-wing sheep breeder who would not sell my friend sheep because he deemed him a right-wing person. And then we had this conversation about left and right, and where this left-wing guy said that he recently saw in Berlin a demonstration of traditional craftsmen, you know, the traditional carpenters in Germany who have their traditional clothes, and these were demonstrating for German national politics, you know, for the right, basically, for the political right. They were demonstrating, and he lamented that now already this traditional craftsmanship is associated with extreme right-wing, with right-wing extremism, basically. So in this world where anything remotely national or you know, traditional can be deemed right-wing extremist, you know, it is so hard to identify what actually is you know, reprehensible right-wingism, you know, so to say, right-wing extremism. It's so hard to tell, and it would require a huge investment in resources, in everyday resources, to figure that out. You know, like the normal person has to invest so much time and so much resources in researching all these new so-called right-wing movements or left-wing movements to find out if he actually is doing something wrong. So what this is comparable to is a system of law which creates itself every day anew. For example, you have your basic laws in your judicial system, you know, what is wrong, what is right, what is reprehensible, what will take you to jail and what not. And since they invented terms like hate crime, you know, what is a hate crime? Since they invented the term hate crime, and since they criminalized conservative right-wing politics, they have basically created a new system of law which is completely, how do you say it in English? Which is not easy to understand. You know, nobody does really know what is right or wrong anymore. You know, what you can say or not, and what lands you in jail or not, or what makes you eligible for holding an official position and what not. You know. So, what I wanted to say is that every person naturally has the right to completely refuse taking part in any of these ideological labyrinths. And you can do that by rejecting to consume any media, any news, by rejecting to take part in the political narratives, in the political process, simply as a means of protecting your psyche, of protecting your mental health, because it has reached a point where it is completely confusing and where you cannot live peacefully anymore if you take part in these impossible logics. Because, as I said again, it would take up most of your mental resources to even try to understand all these weird logics, and to even position yourself, to even try to position yourself on a kind of political ground that is deemed acceptable by the public, you know. So you can just drop out and refuse to accept any of these narratives, and refuse to accept any of the news media. And when people come to you with these narratives, you can just say, which is then also an honest answer, I don't know anything about that. And if they come to you with Angela Merkel or with Jens Spahn or with any of these persons, you can say, I don't know these persons. I don't know what you're talking about. What you're talking about does not form a part of my world, you know. And when they then try to induce a certain sense of responsibility in you, and they tell you, well, but you have to take part in these processes, this is a democracy, you have to be interested in politics, and you have to position yourself, and then all they do is trying to subdue you religiously and ideologically. They try to convert you to their religion and to the value systems that they have created, that are in my eyes fake value systems. They have created a value system that is impossible to understand. It is a little bit similar to Christianity and the Bible. The Bible used as the foundation for an ideological and religious system is impossible. It is completely impossible to understand. There's no way of bringing a cohesive logic into the narrative of the Bible as a foundation for your worldview. And this is the reason why there are so many splinter groups and different interpretations of the Bible, and different, you know, true Christians who claim to have the real interpretation of the Bible. And I don't know if this is by design, but this is definitely what is happening. The Bible is completely incoherent, and it's completely impossible to understand. And for people like me, the best choice is just to ignore the Bible, or at least just use it as a source for information about Christianity and Christian narratives, but not as a foundation for my worldview, because it's just so incoherent. You know, it just doesn't make sense to me. Whenever I talk to Christians, I just can't make any sense of it, you know. And then there's this basic principle where you just have to trust in Jesus and just accept Jesus, and accept. You have to basically break your own mind and your own logical thinking and just accept Jesus blindly, whatever that means, you know. That in itself does not even mean anything, to accept Jesus. And similar, this has happened now with our democracy, where you have to accept democracy without even knowing what that actually means, and with the meaning of this word changing all the time. It is as if you are playing a game, a board game, and with each turn, every time it's your turn, the rules change completely, entirely. And instead of playing the great game, rolling the dice, and, you know, making decisions and trying to win the game or play the game and have fun, instead of that, you have to read a new rule book every single turn. which just consumes the entire time and the whole evening, and it's just tedious. And similarly, this has happened with our politics nowadays, where new groups, new narratives appear every day, and it has become impossible for normal people to take part in this. It's just a complete mess and complete chaos. So what you can do is reject politics, and most of all, reject the media, and say the media has absolutely nothing to do with me. I don't know what you're talking about. You can go on, you can watch your media channels, you can watch your news reporters and all this stuff. I don't know. It's not part of my worldview, it's not part of my religion. And forcing me to accept this narrative and accept this means of communication is an act of violence against me. It's an act of submission, So if the world is a free place where everybody can choose his own religion and worldview, nobody can force me to watch any media. And in my experience, I'm not watching television or even listening to the radio now for years. For more than 10 or 15 years, I'm not watching any of this. Almost 20 years maybe. And I have made the experience that is much more healthy for my mind, and it makes me happy. And every time I watch anything on the TV, I instantly feel the infringement on my mental health and my psyche. I instantly feel the corrosiveness of these narratives, and I instantly feel how damaging it is to my well-being. So I've come to the conclusion that I avoid mainstream media and also most alternative media like a dangerous substance, like something like alcohol or anything, which, it can give you some kind of rush, but it also damages your health. So that's my stance of media rejection. Just reject it and do something else, something more productive. Go outside, go for a walk in the forest. Instead of watching a television screen, just watch your children play, or watch them in the eyes and talk with them, interact with them, and do something